Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee and Headlines, our morning get together live here on Facebook, where we examine headlines from our city, our state, our country, along with your comments, your ideas, and your suggestions on how to enjoy a better, connected, more grounded life here in Puerto Vallarta as a community of English speaking locals. We do this every day of the week except for Sundays, as you know, and today is January 1st, 2022. So, first of all, Happy New Year to everyone. I hope that last night's festivities were exactly what you wanted and that you are starting the year with the kind of mood that you want to start the year with. So I hope you didn't go out and get too crazy last night. As we've been mentioning over the past few days, today's broadcast is pre-recorded. Given the timing of the holidays and given the fact that today is a Saturday, and with your permission, I am enjoying of 2 days off. And what I thought I would do this January 1st, well, I had originally thought about doing New Year's resolutions. And of course, resolutions that have to do with our life living here in Puerto Vallarta. But then somebody, a very wise person, told me a few days ago, resolutions, maybe not, maybe intentions. So this is what's going to happen. We are going to share with you intentions to become more connected as a community of English speaking locals here in Puerto Vallarta. Now, how did we come up with these intentions? Well, it's very simple. Over the course of the year, several times during the year, we have pulled out this statement in the middle of our broadcast. You cannot call yourself a Puerto Vallarta English speaking local until you have blank. And many of the members of our community have contributed their own ideas or your own ideas on what it takes. What are the rites of passage? What are the things that we can learn to do or places to be or get to know? The foods to try that make us more connected with local as a concept. And it's been really interesting to see your choices. So the choice of intentions that we share with you today come precisely from that list of intentions that we've accumulated through the year. Now, not all of the intentions that have been shared are here. We have taken the liberty. Oh, that's a lot of me's. Let me get rid of that one. We don't need that one. There you go. We have taken some of the more important ones, knowing that this list is very incomplete and knowing that you will continue to have amazing suggestions moving forward. And that's wonderful because it is the bread and butter, the meat and potatoes. It is the essence of the type of information we love to feature here at Coffee and Headlines, how to best connect with our surroundings, with people, with our city, with our traditions, our culture, and so forth and so on. And to make these organized, we have divided them into four broad categories: culture, food, city, and nature. So the show notes for today should be helpful for the whole year if you want to come back and revisit them and take a look at some of the things that we may have not done. And I use we very deliberately. I have not done all the things on this list, so I have my own work cut out for myself as far as intentions are concerned. So let's get going, and we start with our culture related intentions. And the first one, and these are in no particular order, the first one that we want to share with you is attend a quinceañera. A quinceañera has to do with that very traditional Latin American rite of passage that young women go through when they turn 15. There's a special party organized, and there's a whole ritual to that party, just like there are rituals to weddings. So and this is not necessarily a Puerto Vallarta thing, it's a Mexico thing, but some people say that you are not in Mexico until you have attended one of these very traditional parties. So sooner or later, you will be invited to one if you start mingling with Spanish-speaking locals or Mexican nationals. When you are, attend and be part of it. Somebody may ask you to become a godfather or a godmother for the event, a padrino or a madrina. This usually means that we will be expected to help sponsor the party. It's not uncommon for families to do that. Do you want to be a godfather or a godmother in my quinceañera? That's very different than just being invited to attend one. So be mindful of that. Somebody may have the expectation that you're actually going to pitch in or sponsor the party. But if you're going to be a guest at a quinceañera, it's really a great opportunity to take in this very traditional experience. Moving down the list, we have attend the lucha libre or wrestling. Some people might argue that boxing is a violent sport. I would tend to agree with that, but lucha libre, the masked fighters, it's more show than anything else. So while it may seem very violent, it's actually more of a show or of a spectacle. Now, Puerto Vallarta has an arena. It's called Demonio Blanco. It is located in Pitillal. And what I usually like to do is keep my eyes open on the Demonio Blanco Facebook page, where I can learn when the upcoming Lucha Libres are taking place. And going to the Lucha Libre is not only to show up to see the event, which is very lively. There are people, women, children, everybody's attending and everybody's cheering these masked Avengers. But a lot of fun of it has to do with who do you run into in the audience. And believe me, it's been fun for me to go to the audience at this venue, which is located out in the middle of nowhere. And I end up running into the occasional English-speaking local, and it's always very funny to see. Anyhow, that is attend the lucha libre. The next one on the list, of course, is attend a posada. We will have to wait until December to do one of these, and hopefully our health conditions will be such that we can. And by attending a posada, I don't necessarily mean attending a Christmas party. I mean attending a traditional posada where there is singing according to the tradition, and there are groups that are outside and groups that are inside, representing those folks that are outside, representing Mary and Joseph looking for a place to spend the night because Mary is about to give birth. And the people inside representing, villagers that do not necessarily want to welcome strangers into their home. There's a whole ritual. We sing, and after we sing, we break the piñatas, and all kinds of things go on. Again, big difference between just going to a posada because some company is throwing a Christmas party and going to a traditional posada. Let's see what else we have. Attending a charreada. Absolutely. Remember that charreada or the charro activities is not only a cultural thing, but it's also a national sport. The skill of learning how to use a rope while you're riding a horse to handle cattle and handle bulls. It is not to be confused with bullfighting, which a lot of people don't like, myself included, because it is a very harmful. It hurts the animals. Charreada is not so. And there are plenty of opportunities to attend smaller charreadas whenever they happen. And they usually happen in small towns around the same time that they're having their patron saint festivals. And of course, here in Puerto Vallarta, in the month of February, from February 3rd to 6th, there's going to be the National Charro Championship, which happens in our city every year, maybe not last year because of the pandemic. So hopefully we will all be able to attend this beautiful event. This is good. Win the baby Jesus on the rosca and deliver. What is this all about? Well, for Three Kings Day, it is traditional in Mexico to enjoy this beautiful, sweet dough bread that is purchased at any bakery or supermarkets and so forth and so on. There's a peculiarity to the bread because little figurines of baby Jesus get inserted into the bread. They are made of plastic. And when you slice the bread, you have to be very careful because you could run into this little baby Jesus. Or if you're taking a bite from your rosca, from the bread, you're likely to run into, you start chewing and all of a sudden you feel something hard. So be careful with those dentures. And know that there's a possibility that depending on the size of the rosca, that there will be one or two or maybe even three plastic little figurines of baby Jesus within the bread. If you get the baby Jesus, if you have the fortune or misfortune of getting the baby Jesus, it becomes your responsibility to bring tamales to a party on February 2nd on what is known as Candelaria Day. It is a religious fart. It is a religious fart. Well, maybe after all those tamales. It is a religious party. Oh, wait, hold on just a second. That deserves one of these. Boom. It is a religious festivity called the Feast of the Purification of the Blessed Virgin. We're not going to get into details of its significance. All you need to know is if you get the baby Jesus in the rosca on January 6th, you're expecting to bring tamales for all those presents at a party to be organized on February the 2nd. You are not an English-speaking local until you've either gotten the baby Jesus and had to schlep tamales for everyone, or until you've gone to one of these parties to enjoy tamales. Yes, you can enjoy tamales every day of the year, but there's something special about Candelaria Day because tamales are also served with atole, which is a masa-based hot beverage that predates to Aztec times. Another cultural activity you may want to enjoy. Some people say that the bicycle knife sharpeners will destroy your knives. Other people say it makes no difference, but one way or another, in many parts of Mexico and certainly in Puerto Vallarta, every now and then you'll hear this whistle, and sooner or later you'll learn to identify it with the walking or riding knife sharpener who has knife sharpeners have this tradition of adapting bicycle mechanisms such that they can ride the bicycle from place to place, set up their bicycle and reconfigure the gears in such a way that while they're pedaling, they are running this small polishing tool that will polish your knives. Again, some people may tell you, well, your knives will be destroyed. Other people will think otherwise, but it is definitely a cultural experience for you to consider. And here's another one. Know the legend of Our Lady of Guadalupe. Lady of Guadalupe is a big deal here in Puerto Vallarta, and we know that we celebrate her birthday every December 12th. So earlier this year, or earlier last year, what am I talking about? In December, we talked about the story of the legend of Lady of Guadalupe, and you won't lose any sleep if you don't know it, but it is important, I suppose, to know a little bit of what the context is and what makes so many local religious residents of Puerto Vallarta want to engage in the festivity that honors Our Lady of Guadalupe. Um, Learn your Spanish language basics. And I'm going to try to explain this one with an anecdote. More than once have I seen the question of, when do you stop saying buenas tardes or good afternoon? And when do you start saying buenas noches or good evening? And a couple of times I've been asked this question, and I've always kind of stumbled on the answer because for the life of me, I don't ever remember going to school and having somebody teach me that starting at such and such time, you switch from good afternoon to good evening. I think what's more important here is that we choose to have the intention of putting some kind of effort forward to engage in Spanish whenever and wherever we can, whether it is with just a basic hola or buenos dias or buenas tardes or a gracias or a no gracias. These are just very basic phrases that you may want to consider adding to your vocabulary. It is not nearly as important if you get your good afternoon at the right time or your good evening at the right time. I think what is most important here is that you have the intention to connect. Last but not least, in the culture category, simply absorb and take in your surroundings. Remember, when we choose to come here, whether we come here from another city or another state in Mexico, whether we choose to come here from another country, the expectation is not that other people should adapt to the way we were wherever we came from. The expectation is that it is our challenge, our delight, our intention to absorb as much as we can from the local culture, from the way things run locally. And that is our list of cultural related intentions. You can also be keeping track or keeping score of how many of these you have already enjoyed. And maybe you can let us know how you fare in your comments and suggestions, or maybe you can suggest others so that we can add them to the list moving forward. Now let's talk about food. Oh gosh, so much can be said about enjoying local food, but we are going to focus on a few things that have come up in conversation or that we have highlighted in previous broadcasts. For starters, eating tacos de canasta is something that we don't get to do very frequently. I'm always amazed at the number of people that have said to me, well, we never tried them before. Perhaps it is because you didn't know about them. We've explained tacos de canasta a couple of times, and in fact, we have a few places figured in our Taco Tuesdays map, which is available for those that are contributing and supporting members of this broadcast. Tacos de canasta, we've explained their origin. They are yummy, no better or no different than other tacos. These are just a very specific taco. And there are certain tacos that are available at certain times of day. We have explained in the past that tacos de canasta are usually found at specific places early in the morning until early afternoon. So that's when you want to go and explore this delicacy. Peel your own prickly pear. This came up a few months ago when I found myself at La Come, and I thought to myself, these are equally beautiful as they can be daunting for someone who doesn't know how to handle them. But they are a very, very nutritious and very delicious sweet fruit that comes from the cactus plant. They come in different colors. There are red ones and there are green ones. And in season, they are just so refreshing. We've explained how to eat them. We've explained how to peel them in the past. And you may want to consider giving it a go. If you want to find out when we discussed it, it's just a matter of searching through our past broadcasts. Another local delicacy, well, not local to Puerto Vallarta, but definitely a Mexican thing. Crunchy, toasted grasshoppers, either as a snack or in quesadillas. This is one of those things that may make some of you cringe, and it is actually quite fun to go to a very good Mexican restaurant or a traditional one, which is where you usually find these, and to dare people around you to try them and to enjoy them. I personally love them. But there are other things that I've never eaten. For example, I've never eaten cuitlacoche. The thought of it makes me just go yucky. Um, but along with grasshoppers, there's a couple of other things. There are escamoles, which are ant larvae, I believe, and there are a number of of things out there that you can choose. But grasshoppers are around here in Puerto Vallarta, and what, by around I don't mean they're floating around in they're around in trees. Grasshoppers can be found at several restaurants in Mexico, in Puerto Vallarta, excuse me. So this is something you may want to consider. Along with food or more traditional Mexican food, chiles and nogada show up in conversation around September, which is when they become available. It's a very beautiful, colorful, patriotic um, dish that features the colors of our flag, red, green, and white. And it is delicious. It's a cold dish. So for some people, it's served at room temperature. For some people, it might seem rather incongruous to enjoy a pepper stuffed with ground beef at room temperature, but that's when they taste their best. We have another one in the food category, cactus salad. Cactus salad is something that you find here and there, and a lot of people stay away from it. Some people argue that the cactus plant can be a little slimy. It all depends on how they're prepared and served. I myself am not quite fond of cactus salad, but this is something that you may want to try because a lot of people here in Mexico enjoy it very much. And one of my favorite foods, of course, is posole. Posole is this hearty hominy dish or stew that is just absolutely delicious. You can find pozole at many local mercados. There are a couple of shops that make it, and we've discussed them. There's a couple of places in our Versalles for Foodie map that offer great pozole. So give it a go, whether you want it vegetarian or you want it with meat. It can be served with chicken or it can be served with pork. It is absolutely delicious. And last but not least, and again, I am sure there are many local things that we are not talking about in terms of food. Just try things, you know. Eating local is no different than absorbing the local culture. I'm sure you will want to be near to the foods that you know and love, especially if you come from another country, because that is what you're familiar with. But allowing yourself to eat the local food brings you in a tighter connection with the city and its surroundings. And now, speaking of the city or talking about the city, let's talk about some city related things that you may want to consider to add to your intention list in 2022, starting with calling your neighborhood or the neighborhoods by what they are called. And I know some of you may argue, well, Paco, that's your pet peeve. And yes, it is. I do cringe, excuse me, I do cringe when I hear South Side instead of Emiliano Zapata, and I do cringe when I hear 5D instead of Cinco de Diciembre. Um, but those are their names. And it's a choice. You know, you can choose to call them whatever you want or whatever you think they are called in English. But the fact is, we are in Mexico, and these towns, and these neighborhoods, these colonias have Spanish names for the most part. Well, Gringo Gulch is a weird oddity. I don't know who the hell came up with that, but it is widely accepted. But all these other things, Old Town, South Side, EZ, 5D, you know, you will never be perceived as an English speaking local the more these notions are perpetrated. And that's probably about as biased as I'm going to be with this list of intentions for 2022. So let's move right along. This one never ceases to amaze me when I hear from people that have never walked the Isla Rio Cuale from tip to tap. From tip to tap, from tip to tip. If anything, it is comforting that people feel comfortable to admit something as basic as this in our broadcasts. And what that says to me is that we are clearly sending out a no shame message, because there is no shame in not having done any of these activities. It's simply getting to them. You know, walking the island from one end to the other is beautiful. It's one of the city's lungs. And I know it may be a little challenging this time of year because of the reconstruction of the Insurgentes Bridge. But as we've reported previously, once the bridge is finished, one will be able to actually walk under the new Insurgentes Bridge and not by crossing the street. So it'll be interesting how this new vehicular bridge increases our appeal and our love for Isla Rio Cuale. Moving right along, go to the second story of City Hall. Why? Because up there you will find a beautiful mural painted by Manuel Lepe, who was probably the first Puerto Vallarta-born visual artist to gain international recognition. There is still a house museum under his name, which you can visit, and but even if you don't get to that, if you have to do any kind of paperwork at City Hall, all it takes is a quick climb up the stairs, and as you're climbing up the stairs, you will find the mural right then and there. Also, the walk up the old Lighthouse on Matamoros Street is not very ambitious for those people that have a difficult time walking. It is just a few blocks away from the Malecon, and we have mentioned this in the past. We've walked up there in one of our Walking Wednesdays, and of course, you get to enjoy a beautiful view of our city and our bay from that vantage point. Another city-related thing, shop and even eat at a municipal market. We put this under city and not so much under eat because municipal markets are a cultural essence of our city. There are several, but probably the ones that are better known are the one in Emiliano Zapata, the one in Cinco de Diciembre, which is mostly seafood, and the one in Aramara. Those are the three, and Aramara being the largest. There are great shopping opportunities and there are great eating opportunities at all three of these markets. Now, not to be confused with the markets are the Tiangis, which the word Tiangis comes from the Nahuatl language that was used by the Aztecs. And of course, a Tiangis is an outdoor market that was common and has existed in Mexico since Aztec times. There are several of them that happen usually on a weekly basis in different places in the city. The better known one is the one that sets up shop at the Libramiento on Saturdays. And again, we have a whole feature about this on a broadcast. It's just a matter of digging through the show notes. If you've never shopped at a Tiangis, you can find clothes, you can find fresh produce, you can find plants, you can find a variety of products. And I'm sure there are other English-speaking locals or Mexican nationals that would love to tag along with you if it's your first time, as it's not very likely that you will find people speaking Spanish at the Tiangis. Get your Jalisco state driver's license, for me, is a metaphor of stand in line at a bank, at Telcel, at Telmex, or to get your driver's license. You know, it's these activities that take half of your day, and for better or worse, we have to endure them. They are a rite of passage. But there's something special to be said about getting your own local driver's license, because once you get your local driver's license, you're pretty much as local as you get. So consider that one as an intention if you are driving around the city. This one came from one of you, and it really touched me dearly. Learn the name of your local shop owners. If there are tienditas in your neighborhood, if you shop constantly at the same store, you know, it never hurts to ask the person, what is your name? And if the person's name is Imelda or whatever, then just say, well, thank you, Imelda, for being here. You know, you'll be more connected, and you'll probably feel good about knowing the name of the person that you buy your chingaderas from on a regular basis. Use public transportation. This was another suggestion. Some of us are Ubering these days. We are not feeling very comfortable about the bus, but there are a lot of people that use city buses to shop, to go to work, to explore. I remember when I first moved to Puerto Vallarta, I hopped on the bus just to see where it would take me. And it's a great way to see how locals move about, how many locals move about. And it gives us the appreciation of what it's like to get from point A to point B the way the large majority of the local population does. Well, I shouldn't say large majority. I really don't know how many people own cars versus how many people don't. But let's just say that a lot of people rely on the city bus to get from one place to another. Speaking of getting from one place to another, just walk. Walking is good for our health. It's good for our mental well-being, and it's the easiest way to get to know the city. Yes, you could argue that there are certain places that are not safe for walking, but more often than not, if you're walking in just about any neighborhood in the city um, during the daytime, you are very unlikely to feel threatened. And if you feel threatened, bring a Spanish speaking local, bring a friend, go out in groups. The important thing is that we miss so many things about the city when we're just used to seeing it as we drive by it. So there's something to be enjoyed about walking from one place to another and seeing how neighborhoods feel when you are exploring them. I've enjoyed very much doing our Walking Wednesdays, and we'll continue doing that because you enjoy them quite a bit. But I'm also delighted whenever I hear from somebody that said, you know what, I walked that neighborhood and I never saw it that way before. Moving right along, we move on to nature-related adventures. And again, living in the tropics, there are so many possibilities here. We're going to single out a few, including or starting with having a close encounter with an iguana or a garrobo. Now, this may happen voluntarily or involuntarily. Voluntary ways in which this happens is usually you see them perched up on trees or climbing up walls or trying to cross the street. They're out there. And I certainly do not mean, when I say having a close encounter with an iguana or a garrobo, I certainly do not mean engaging in this beach activity in which there are people with iguanas on their shoulders that give you the iguana for you to wear. This activity, by the way, is not legal unless you have a very special permission to handle iguanas. You will be tempted to feed your Facebook feed or Instagram feed with a photo of you and your iguana, but be mindful of the fact that iguanas, while not in major danger of extinction, it's a protected species in Mexico. An involuntary encounter with these animals could happen if one of them falls in your porch or your terrace, or all of a sudden you get home and your cat is all giddy because there's some bug or lizard in your home. Yes, sometimes they come into our surroundings, and it is important to understand that this can happen. And sometimes you have to deal with getting rid of them, which brings me to this point, knowing the difference between one and the other. Iguanas belong in the iguana genus, and the scientific name for local iguanas is Iguana iguana, while the garrobos belong to the Cenosara genus, and the scientific name of local garrobos is Cenosara similis. But for all intents and purposes, and this is from my own personal experience, garrobos are much crankier than iguanas. And in fact, whenever I've had close encounters with garrobos, they will attack. Even though we're a lot taller than them, they will come at you if you threaten them or if they feel scared. So please know the difference between these animals, and for the most part, keep your distance and appreciate them for what they are from a distance. Another nature-related item, which seems to be a rite of passage here in Puerto Vallarta, is to either adopt a local pet, be it a dog or a cat, or be instrumental in helping an adopted or rescued animal reach its final home. Our friend Candace Shaw and along with many other people in town, are involved in safely making connections between prospective pet owners and animals that need rescuing and that need transportation back to the United States and Canada. You'll feel so good about yourself if you participate in this, and Candace Shaw, along with other people that get involved in this activity, will be so very glad to tell you what that is all about. From August to December, we get a chance to help turtle hatchlings find their way back to the ocean. I mean, how do you explain the wonderful phenomena or miracle of nature that for millions of years turtles have been coming to our beaches to lay their eggs and for their hatchlings to return back to the ocean only to come back to Puerto Vallarta or the region years after? This journey, of course, is threatened by predator birds that may be tempted to snack on the hatchlings as they're trying to get to the ocean from their buried eggs under the sand. So there are a number of nature organizations, both state sponsored and private, that help make sure that we can help these hatchlings find their way safely back to the ocean. It is something that I've done a couple of times, and it always takes my breath away. Closely related, whale watching, December to March. It's another one of those things that has been going on for millions of years. And there are providers that are more responsible than others in the way they get close to these majestic animals. We have discussed a few responsible for providers in the past, and we can continue to make recommendations whenever it becomes an issue, and that's what Coffee and Headlines is all for. Last but not least, explore. You know, we live in a place full of natural opportunities, and beyond Puerto Vallarta, there are all these destinations that have their own nature related appeal. There are little towns, there are small villages, there are plenty of opportunities for us to get involved in our surroundings. And this, of course, brings us to the end of our very incomplete list of intentions you may want to consider pursuing during this year. And I hope you've enjoyed these recommendations. I hope you'll come back and review them every now and then, because as I said earlier, this is the meat and potatoes of what we do here at Coffee and Headlines. 2021 was a challenging year for many of us. It was a year of a lot of changes, a lot of growth, a lot of challenges. And I can only hope that this new year will continue to challenge us, but in favorable ways. And I do hope that we will continue to keep a list of intentions that includes our intention to remain kind, to remain safe, to remain grounded, and to remain connected to one another. And certainly here at Coffee and Headlines, we hope you'll continue to be connected to our broadcasts, which will continue to happen Monday through Saturday, 10:30 in the morning, local time. I will see you again on Monday. Happy New Year.